In this video, I'm going to give you 10 pieces of brutal sales advice that will completely transform your approach and skyrocket your close rate. We'll cover everything from why your sales pitch sucks to how to turn your objections into your best friends. I've used these exact strategies to close deals across 7 different industries, including SaaS, luxury retail, high-ticket coaching, consistently achieving over 40% closing rates, and even getting to a perfect month of 100% offer to close rate. So, if you're ready to learn some hard truths that will revolutionize your sales game, keep watching. The thing that is going to skyrocket your close rate has nothing to do with some magic script or some cookie cutter sales technique that promises to triple your revenue overnight. It's just not going to happen. And as much as I'd like to sit here and tell you, honestly, it would make my job a hell of a lot easier, that that's the case, it's just not the reality. The reality is, to crush your sales targets in 2024, you need to understand the psychology behind high ticket sales. So, this is what most salespeople get wrong. Most people, when they come onto an offer, or most founders, when they start selling high ticket, they think that they need a script. When you're starting out for closing and you're getting on calls with prospects who want to pay you money, the last thing that you want to do is start reading off a script. And it doesn't matter whether you memorize it or not, a script will 99 times out of 100 absolutely kill your close rate. And the reason for that is people know they're being sold to when they feel like you're reading from a script. When it feels like you are going through a set of questions that don't really link to one another, and there's no logical chain between the questions you ask, and it feels like they kind of come out of left field, it makes the prospect almost realize that they're being sold to. Now, the obvious response that I get a lot of the time from clients and reps that I train is, but of course they know they're being sold to. This is a sales call. They got on the sales call. And yes, that is the obvious answer. However, that's not always true. Most people, despite the fact that they get on a sales call, are not conscious of you selling to them unless you make it obvious. And that's what a sales script does. It makes it really obvious that the only thing that you're there to do is collect their cash. And nobody wants to feel like that. Fundamentally, you need to understand that psychology and sales are inherently linked, and how people think and how people feel when they're on a sales call is as important as you solving a problem. Now, most reps and most founders think, well, the thing that I sell is so useful, so long as I have a step-by-step approach to get them to the point where they realize they need the thing, why would they not buy from me? And the short answer to that is, most people don't want to feel like they're getting suckered, and that's what being sold to feels like. Now, most people don't see that there's anything wrong with that, but what it does is it builds sales resistance. The nuts and bolts of what that is the person feels uncomfortable because of insert reason here. And if the number one thing you're doing is reading questions off a script, you are guaranteed to make that person feel like they are being sold to. So when you go through this idea of, I'm going to read off my script, and my sales manager or me as the founder, I've sat there and I've gone through and I've found out the questions that I think are really important for me to know, and I went on YouTube or I bought a course and they said to ask these questions, and therefore if I ask those questions I will close too. That is the second problem, because if you're shoehorning someone else's script into your sales process, you don't really understand why people are there. What you're doing is you're focusing on what comes out of your mouth instead of focusing on what comes out of theirs. And that is the biggest mistake you can make as a salesperson. Because if you're focused on asking your questions, you're not really listening. And there's a massive difference between listening and hearing what a prospect says. When you're listening, you can learn and actively implement stuff like implication questions. Things like digging into prospect's pain. But if the only thing you're listening for is that like bell ringing sound in your head when they've answered a question in a way that means, you know what, I should get off this question now and go on to the next one in my script, because that's what a script is, you're now not actually listening to them. And yes, a prospect, you know, if you're selling a fitness offer, for example, might come to you and say, I've been wanting to lose weight for the last 6 months. Great, now ask why. Dig into that. But again, you're not going to get as deep as someone that doesn't have a script is, because you're only focused on moving to the next question. And that leads me on to the third problem associated with this, which is if you're so focused on using a script and moving on from one question to the next, you're going to miss out on real pain that the prospects have that's hidden a couple of layers deeper. And that is the number one thing when I'm reviewing calls for my clients or reps that I'm helping train. The biggest issue that they have is they don't dig deep enough and they don't find the real root cause of pain. Again, let's use the fitness offer example. If you're selling fitness and someone says, oh yeah, I've wanted to lose weight for the last 6 months because I want to feel better about myself. That is music to any salesperson's ears if they have the question, what makes you want to lose weight, on their script. And they go, cool, I've got that now, I can move on. When in reality, it's what's hidden deeper underneath the layers of that response that is far more interesting and that will actually lead prospects to buy from you. So if your response to that is, oh, okay, cool, I can now move on, you're missing out on so much that's hidden underneath. For example, if you say, oh, interesting, and what's prompted that in the last 6 months? And they say, oh, like I've got some events coming up and, I feel like I can't run around with my kids as much. And I know my wife and I don't have the best sex life anymore, right? Like, let's go insane with it. Well, now, just by asking how come over the last 6 months, you've gotten a shit ton more pain. Now, if you're decent at sales, you'll know to do that and you'll stop there and then you'll move on. But the next level, deeper, is where the real pain is, because all of those things, the prospect has kind of come to terms with, right? They know that they have events coming up, so they should probably lose weight. Their back kind of twinges when they run around with their kids. I can't do it as much. Oh, well, not a big deal. All of those statements are individually so important to then dig further into. But most people, if they follow a script, won't bother because they've heard what they need to. They've then dug in a little bit deeper and they found out the deeper motivations, but anything else is kind of superfluous. However, if you find out that the event that person has is their daughter's wedding, you now have a whole angle of things that you can go down when you need to push and when you need to dig deeper on pain and when you need to implicate and cause and develop that pain. How would you feel if when you look at those photos when they come out in, 3 or 4 months after the wedding and your suit's bulging? Is that the ideal world, or what does perfect look like in your mind? That is an infinitely deeper pain point than I want to lose weight and I have done for the last 6 months. And the only thing it took was learning to dig deeper. And that doesn't tend to happen when you have a really rigid sales script. The best example that I can give is one from one of my current clients. And they do sell fitness, and that's kind of why the example came to pass. These guys are very competent salespeople, and the program they have is absolutely fantastic. The problem is that they had a very structured sales script, and the first 10 minutes of it was all about the numbers and all about, how much do you weigh now? Where do you want to end up? How much do you want to weigh in 6 months? What's been stopping you? Do you know, when was the last time you weighed yourself? All of these questions that immediately put the prospect in a very logical and therefore not emotional headspace. Now, as soon as you have that as the baseline, the prospect is immediately going to start thinking way more critically about everything that comes out of your mouth. Firstly, because no one enjoys questions like that, especially if you're trying to lose weight. You don't want to be constantly reminded of how much you weigh and where you want to be in terms of a number and when the last time you got on the scale was. All of these things are more commonly asked when you go to a doctor's office than when you go into a sales process with someone that wants to help you. And immediately it gets people's back up and it gets them defensive. Now, the minute that you took that element away from them, they went from closing it between 15 and 22% all the way up to 30 to 35%. Why? Because you take the structure away and you ask them, so, okay, you're here because you clearly want to lose weight. Talk to me about where you're at right now. And you get people to open up and immediately they're more relaxed. And I stripped away all of the stuff within their sales script. And I said, the only thing you need to worry about is structure. You should absolutely have a framework for how you approach each sales call. But you don't need an individualized, or rather carte blanche script that is going to try and work for every single person, because that's not how people work. People want to have a conversation with you, and you as the salesperson need to guide them to an endpoint that is beneficial for them. That is not going to be linear for every single person. That's going to change person to person. So as soon as we've ripped that out and we focus way more on the emotional set instead of the logical set, their close rates shot up within the same month. It took less than 10 days. Now, it isn't always that simple, right? But the logic behind this is a script is going to do you more harm than good, because it's going to take you out of being in the moment, talking to these people and actually having a conversation that you can guide by how you ask questions, by what questions you ask, by what you're trying to do to that prospect psychology in that call, than if you just have a script that you read the questions off almost monotonously and hope for the best. The goal here is that you can take someone from point A where they're at, put enough obstacles in front of them as they continue, make the pain that they currently feel worse, so that by the end of it, when you pitch your solution, it is the only logical thing for them to do. When you get this right, you're able to handle objections when they come up before the pitch. And this is one of the most common things that I see in all of the clients and all of the reps that I've ever coached, is they don't want to talk about the obvious struggles or obvious problems that they have, that the prospect has, or that the prospect situation is going to lead them to have with the program, right? Or with the solution. Because in their mind, if they just shut it out and don't think about it and don't talk about it and don't mention it to the prospect, maybe the prospect will forget. Or maybe they hear something that they're like, oh, you know what, that probably might cause an objection down the line. Let's say you're selling lead gen for dentists, and they say, oh yeah, you know, we've worked with some people in the past and we never got any results. And they say, oh, we're just going to rush past that because we don't want to talk about how, you know, you've tried this before and it was a problem. If in the moment when you ask that, the logical question is, and that's what we do, is that going to be a deal breaker? Like, are you open to trying again? Or is it like, hey, if you do Facebook ads for lead gen for dentists, I'm not involved, I don't want to buy this at all. And if they say, yep, it's a deal breaker, I don't want to get involved with that again, we wasted too much money, cool, you have your answer. Move on. You don't need to beat the prospect over the head so that they buy it. That's what leads to buyer's remorse. That's what leads to refunds. Equally, if you have a script in front of you that says, oh, ask about what they've done in the past, and you ask, oh, what have you done in the past? And they say, oh yeah, we tried, you know, Facebook ads for lead gen and it didn't work and it was crap. Oh, okay, well, what else have you done? You haven't addressed that. But if you have the chance to knock objections on their head by going off script, that's what you should be doing. Equally, if you know that the prospect feels overconfident, they feel like they can do it themselves, and they've told you that in the course of discovery, it is your job to address that there and then, not wait simply for the nth degree to come around and you've done the pitch and you're like, yeah, this feels like a sale, and they're like, you know what, I could do it myself. Well, yeah, of course they think that. You didn't address it when it came up. So inevitably, you have to be more headstrong when it comes to addressing objections as and when they come, on the nose, because you need to be able to have the freedom for that, and a script won't give you that. Now, the second and more, in my mind, beneficial thing is you're going to get a way deeper connection with prospects. Everyone forgets that people buy from people, right? People buy from people to solve problems. Yes, 100%. But the difference between someone being able to feel like they can talk to you and feel like they can open up and feel like they can be real with you is the difference between you finding out something that might ultimately win you a deal or kill the deal dead. And the only thing stopping that is connection. Now, I'm not talking about building rapport here. I think rapport is largely nonsense. However, what you do need to be able to do is be someone that is going to be a useful person in a conversation. And what I mean by that is, let's say you and your best friend get into a conversation about their breakup. They've just had a breakup, they call you, they're absolutely broken. If your response to that is, yeah, no, I get that must be really tough. Are you doing anything for dinner, by the way? Like, do you want to go and get dinner? I'm kind of hungry. They're going to look at you as if you're insane because they've just opened up and they've told you something. And your response has basically been to brush it off and be like, listen, I'm hungry. My needs are bigger than yours. And that is exactly what happens when you move from the answer a prospect has given you to a question that you've asked to the next question. And you don't follow it up with something that digs deeper into the problem. And that's the biggest difference between a salesperson that follows a script and someone that doesn't, is they are able to get so much deeper with prospects because prospects allow them to. And the number one problem that I hear is, I feel weird like asking these questions to prospects because like I feel weird about it. Well, prospects feel weird when you don't ask those questions. So would you rather feel weird or would you rather prospects felt weird? Because you are killing your own close rates simply by not getting deep enough. The biggest reason that most people can't do this is because they don't understand active listening. Active listening and hearing is the difference between your mum saying, hey, take the bins out, I'm gonna go out today, and you going, okay, and then her coming back later and being like, wait, did you hear what I said? I said take the bins out. And you're like, yeah, I heard you. Take the bins out, you're going out. That's hearing. Active listening is, okay, when are you going to be back so I make sure it's done by blank? If you can't master active listening, sales will be really, really, really hard for you because you simply won't be able to get on a level with prospects. And that is going to be the difference between close won and close lost 85 to 90% of the time. People will outclose you, people will sign bigger deals, people will sign longer term deals than you simply because they are better at listening to what comes out of prospects' mouths. So, how do you solve this problem in a step-by-step process? First of all, you need to understand sales psychology. If you want to understand sales psychology better, click like and subscribe, follow this channel, and you will get a very deep understanding of sales psychology. That is what I focus on, that is what I teach clients, that is what I've taught more than 2,000 people over the last 3 or 4 years. Now, if you can do that, and you can do it effectively, you will end up in a much better situation than other reps who simply want to shoehorn other people's sales methodologies into their system. The next thing is you need to be able to read and respond to prospects' emotions. When prospects say to you, yeah, I'm just not sure, and your response is, well, what makes you not sure? You're an idiot. That's it. That's the crux of that. You're just not understanding how people work. Make friends, have conversations with real people, and you'll realize that if you use the same tactics that you're trying to use in sales calls with real people, you will have no friends. But all of you do have friends, and for some reason you don't transplant that knowledge into your sales process because it feels weird. Guess what? You're screwing yourself by not doing it. The next thing is practice active listening. And if you can practice active listening and you can get better at responding in kind to what people say, if you can get better at digging into what makes you say that, how long has that been happening? If you can be curious, that is the biggest lever that you can pull in a sales process. If you can then leverage that skill and develop the ability to develop pain, that is where most of the gap that most of you are facing in your sales process is happening, by not being able to develop pain effectively. And then finally, you need to implement a flexible, and I mean that, sales psychology based framework. And the reason I say framework and not script is you need to understand what call structure is. You need to understand how to transition through the different parts of the call so that a prospect not only feels comfortable, but they feel confident in you as the salesperson, that you are actually going to be able to get them to the point that they want to get to. So that's everything that I have on ditching the script, embracing sales psychology. There's obviously a lot here, and I've kind of brushed over a lot of the more nuanced points, and I will do videos about them later. But if you take on any of the stuff that I've said to you, I am 100% sure that your close rate will go up in as little as 30 days. If you're interested in working with me to help you master sales psychology, click the first link in the description. Come talk to me. I'm happy to have a conversation with basically everybody. I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for watching. Go watch the rest of my videos on the channel. Like and subscribe. Peace.